Okay, let's start with a joke. What's the difference between a gun and an alcoholic? Well, a gun's simple. It only has one trigger. Now, I consider myself incredibly, bizarrely lucky that I seem to have escaped all of my alcoholism without any major health problems. All of my organs are still very much intact, as far as I know. Considering how terribly I treated my body during the years of my worst alcoholism, it's a miracle. And I see far better people than myself get far worse consequences. I don't take it for granted, but there were so many times during my alcoholism where I was convinced I was about to die, and that I was sure that I needed to go to hospital because I could feel my heart pounding in my chest like it was about to burst. Or I could feel it fluttering and skipping beats like it was about to stop. In withdrawal, I would get palpitations, but palpitations with chest pain that radiated across my chest, like I was genuinely sure, convinced that I was dying and that I should go to hospital and write my will and contact my loved ones and that kind of thing. I thought this was it. Sometimes I was able to convince myself that it was just anxiety that was telling me I was going to die, and that if I just rode it out, I would be okay. But it turns out what I was experiencing was a known medical condition with a name, and that I actually may have been in danger. And perhaps some of those times that I decided not to go to the hospital, perhaps I should have. And if you're experiencing some of the things I'm going to be talking about today, then maybe you should too. The name of this condition is holiday heart syndrome, and that's what I'm talking about today. Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bat Country. Look at you and your little face. Say hello to the nice sober people for me. Speak! Speak! Yeah, good girl. Okay, so before we get stuck into the details of this condition, a point of order for this episode. Make sure you go to betterwithoutbooze.me to try out the world's best sobriety app. Or go to patreon.com/batcountrysober if you want to support the channel and get access to some behind-the-scenes stuff and a community of sober and nearly sober people. Anyway, brace yourself. This is going to be a sciencey one by my standards. So the other day, someone in my comments was replying to one of my old YouTube shorts about things that you're grateful for, I think. It was Nasdown, who's a frequent contributor to the channel in the comments. And they said that one of the things that they're grateful for is that they no longer wake up with holiday heart syndrome. And I'd never heard of it, and it really got my attention. There's a good chance that I'm late to this party, and all of you already know about this thing already, but it was new to me, and it got me really excited, like a new thing to talk about. And so I'm going to talk about it, and there's nothing you can do to stop me, because this is my dumb channel, and what I say goes. So nah. So this thing that I'm excited to talk about is called holiday heart syndrome. And I'm excited about it because what Nasdown accidentally did when they left that phrase in my comments was introduce me to was add to my knowledge of sobriety and alcoholism. And that's why I'm so keen to pass this on today. Now, holiday heart syndrome, if it sounds like a made-up thing, like one of those old wives' medical conditions, then you're wrong. Here is a medical paper from 2024 discussing it. The link to that is in the description, and that paper is going to inform largely what I talk about in this episode. So what is holiday heart syndrome? Well, have you ever had really bad palpitations and flutters in your heart after a period of heavy drinking? Well, that's holiday heart syndrome. And it's called holiday heart syndrome because people admit themselves to hospital thinking they're having a heart attack, and it tends to happen after holidays and long weekends and periods of celebration. Periods when people are drinking extra heavily. Around those long weekends and holidays, even people who don't usually drink very often drink excessively, sometimes. And this is a condition that can strike those just as often as it might strike perhaps a chronic alcoholic who's been binge drinking. We'll take any excuse to get hammered, most of us. Culturally, we will accept any opportunity to drink ourselves stupid, and that generally has consequences, even if you're not usually a heavy drinker. So here's the definition of holiday heart syndrome from that paper that I've linked in the description. The term holiday heart syndrome is used to describe the manifestation of cardiac arrhythmias following a period of binge drinking, often observed during weekends and holidays. This association between cardiac arrhythmias and binge drinking was originally introduced by Ettinger et al., who observed 24 patients getting hospitalized with atrial fibrillation after engaging in a weekend binge of alcohol consumption. Subsequent research has demonstrated that holiday heart syndrome can also occur in individuals who rarely or never consume alcohol, but occasionally engage in binge drinking. Atrial fibrillation is heart palpitations, or it's heart flutter. Sometimes colloquially we call it when your heart beats with no blood in it. It's all of those feelings that we have, especially in hangover and withdrawal. So that's what it is. That feeling that you get that you're about to drop dead because your heart is, you can feel your heart. That's holiday heart syndrome. And the connection between sudden high volumes of alcohol and abnormal heart rhythms was first identified by Ettinger, that doctor, in the 70s. But this had been familiarly recognized for a while. There was like anecdotal reports from various medical professionals who noticed that there was an uptick in people admitting themselves to hospital with weird heart complaints, particularly after holidays with lots of food and alcohol. And that first medical acknowledgement of the condition, it must have answered a lot of questions right away, because that slightly informal sounding name, holiday heart syndrome, it stuck straight away, and it continues to stick to this day. We haven't changed it since, even though it doesn't exactly sound very scientific. But it's definitely a good name. It's definitely fit for purpose. It's just one of those semi-medical terms that just sticks right away, like swimmer's ear or mad cow disease. It's in that kind of lane. So what exactly is happening in your heart during holiday heart syndrome? Well, normally your heart is beating steadily, controlled by electrical signals. And those signals start in the upper chambers of your heart, and they move in a wave, coordinated throughout your heart, telling the muscles when to contract. But alcohol is proven to disrupt those electrical signals. It happens in the brain. It also happens in the heart and in the central nervous system. And when that happens, when alcohol is disrupting those autonomic electrical signals, you might feel intense heart palpitations and a racing pulse and some associated dizziness, a shortness of breath and fatigue and horrible, uncomfortable, fluttering sensations in your chest. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Because it fucking does to me. I remember coming out of periods of binge drinking when all I could do was wander around my apartment in the daytime in like my boxer shorts and nothing else, just kind of flicking my hands around, panicked, and just pacing around as I felt my heart feeling like it was about to stop or it was about to burst. And I would walk around and I would get these horrible palpitations with pain, and I would have to punch myself above my heart as though I was helping to restart it, and all these weird neurotic behaviors, when perhaps a better option for me would have been to go to hospital. But does any of that sound familiar to you? Because if it does, then you've experienced holiday heart syndrome, even if you didn't know it had a name. So how serious is it? Well, it turns out most of the time, like 90% of the time, it's not very serious. But when it is serious, it's very fucking serious. Sometimes this effect can elevate your heart rate like 50%, more than 50% above your resting heart rate. And for someone experiencing it for the first time, or for someone who has no idea that this is a common phenomenon, it can be terrifying. I know it scared the shit out of me repeatedly. It was terrifying for me every single time it happened, and I let it happen many times. I spent about a decade thinking that I had a problem with my heart, to the point where I still have a kind of neurosis about it. My major fear is a heart attack. I was just convinced I was going to die for about 10 years, and it's exhausting to live like that. There's just nothing good about alcohol on the whole. It's so exhausting to live as an alcoholic. It's so exhausting to go through a cycle of drunkenness and withdrawal. And as hard as it is, and as hard as sobriety can be sometimes, it is much easier to just maintain sobriety than it is to dip in and out of it, to get sober again and again. Abstinence is just easier than careful moderation. Anyway, from that paper again, I'm going to quote about the consequences of holiday heart syndrome. So here we go. The prognosis of holiday heart syndrome varies depending on the presence of any underlying cardiac diseases. Chronic alcohol use raises the risk of arrhythmia, cardiomyopathy, and chronic liver disease. It should be noted that although the majority, around 90%, of alcohol-related atrial fibrillation cases resolve spontaneously, approximately 20 to 30% may recur within 12 months. When considering the atrial fibrillation subtype, moderate to heavy alcohol consumption is the most robust predictor of progression from paroxysmal atrial fibrillation to persistent atrial fibrillation. So to translate, that was saying that alcohol is going to predict how serious, whether this is going to recur even in sobriety for you. And the more it recurs, the more likely you are to develop things like cardiomyopathy and various heart conditions. And then the paper continues with some complications from holiday heart syndrome, which include, especially for chronic alcoholics, life-threatening arrhythmias, the development of persistent and chronic atrial fibrillation, that is, the constant palpitations which eventually exhaust your heart and shorten your life, the development of dilated cardiomyopathy and congestive heart failure, embolic stroke and systemic thromboembolism. So this condition, as funny as the name is, as like disarming as this kind of colloquial name is, it can lead or contribute to strokes, and also can directly lead to death. That's the final bullet point on the complications from this paper. As I mentioned in passing a moment ago, you don't have to be a chronic alcoholic to experience holiday heart syndrome. In fact, the majority of people are not. It's just extra dangerous for pissheads, like everything else. And the longer that feeling goes on, so what that is saying is that the more it recurs, the more serious the complications will ultimately be. And if atrial fibrillation persists, that is all of those kind of heart fluttery, palpitation-y sensations, that can allow blood clots to form in your heart. And those blood clots can be a problem on their own. They can travel to the brain and cause a stroke, or they can lead to various thromboses and other complications, like nothing good, basically. So what's the science behind why alcohol might be causing this condition? Well, the research suggests there might be several biological mechanisms that lead to holiday heart syndrome, and they often happen together, so more than one influence at a time. For example, alcohol interferes with the electrical behavior of heart cells, as I mentioned a moment ago. And one of the things that especially prolonged alcohol use can do, I had this, is it can lead to calcium deficiencies. And that sounds relatively innocuous, except that heart muscle cells rely on tiny movements of calcium inside the cell to coordinate each heartbeat. So that heartbeat it relies on calcium to retain its rhythm. And alcohol can absolutely directly disrupt that process by depleting your calcium reserves, causing abnormal electrical signals that make it easier for your heart to slip into arrhythmia. And then there's just the state of hangover. So after even one night of heavy drinking, your body often enters a state of mild withdrawal. It's not just a hangover, especially if you're a relatively regular drinker. It's not just a hangover, and stress hormones like adrenaline are increased. Then your nervous system becomes more excited. Very common in withdrawal, in fact, very severe. That's what characterizes very severe alcohol withdrawal, is a hyper-excited central nervous system. And that can happen in small cases, just in severe hangovers. And that extra stimulation can itself lead to cardiac arrhythmia and irregular rhythms. A hangover, for example, you probably know from experience, will increase your heart rate by about 15 to 20%. And that just, over time, that just puts extra stress and extra wear on your heart. And then, of course, there's like the indirect effects of heavy drinking, which is that alcohol causes electrolyte loss and dehydration. And when those levels drop, the heart becomes more prone to rhythm disturbance, and it's more difficult to restore a normal rhythm in your heart without those electrolytes and without enough hydration. And then if you put all of those factors together, and many, many more besides, the electrical instability, the increased stress hormones, the dehydration, the electrolyte imbalance, and the calcium deficiencies, then you have the perfect storm for at least a temporary arrhythmia and the feeling like your heart is about to give out. So that's enough science stuff. That is that's above my pay grade to talk in any more detail. All of that stuff you can read for yourself, should you wish to, in the paper that I've linked in the description. It's all there. Oh, shit. So I just noticed a TV screen turned off in the background. I hope that hasn't been off this whole time. Look, as I mentioned, the reason why I want to talk about this today is because it's new to me, it's new information, and it has expanded my knowledge of alcoholism and recovery. And there is increasing awareness that no amount of alcohol is good for you. It's a thing that we've known for a long time, but there are various lobbies and pro-alcohol industries that occasionally put out press releases that leak into the public domain about how one glass of wine is good for your heart. We know it's not true anymore, and this leads into that. You don't even have to be an alcohol abuser. You don't have to be regularly drinking very heavily to experience something like holiday heart syndrome. In fact, many cases occur after just occasional binge drinking, like after a wedding or a bachelor's party, or New Year's Eve, or holiday celebration. Holiday heart syndrome often happens to people who don't drink very often. It does not discriminate. Now, I know this is all very morbid, I know that, but isn't it interesting? It's just, I feel a bit validated about the palpitations I used to experience when I was drinking made me as scared as they did. Made me convinced I was going to die because there was a small chance I was right the whole time. And that's it. That's all I've got today. Just a quick video to talk about something that I find interesting. And I just wanted to give everyone else another reason, throw another reason on the pile to quit drinking today. You're welcome. Not that we need any more reasons. So, thank you for watching. Go to betterwithoutbooze.me to try a very comprehensive sobriety app, or go to patreon.com/backcountrysober to get a little more up close and personal with this channel and get some behind the scenes stuff. As always, good luck out there.